Welcome to the first edition of Farina's Campfire. You can't see the campfire, so I'm going to show it to you here in a minute. Got a nice hot cup of Earl Grey kicking. I'm a big tea connoisseur. So what I'm going to do over the next hour or so is attempt to answer any questions anyone might have about whatever, life, the cosmos, you name it, writing, if you have questions on writing, of course. And I'll attempt to answer in the best way I can from personal experience. I'm not disclaiming that I have all the answers or the right answer. I'm just saying maybe something I know may be able to help someone out there, and that's the whole point. And the smoke has been going the opposite way pretty much the past couple hours, and now it's decided to shift into my face, which isn't fun. So I'm going to move around just a little bit. Yeah. What I have set up in the background is a monitor in case anybody does post questions, they want to know anything, and regardless. There's my tree, some lights went out, and we have plenty of wood for the night. So we're gonna scoot over this other direction here, and as you can see, the smoke is going right into the face of the fire. I do apologize for this delay here for a second. But we'll be set up momentarily. So the first thing I'm going to harp on is probably one of the biggest things on people's minds these days. And it's as a patriot, as a Marine, as a writer, as a philosopher, and the state of our country. And I'm not going to get into politics. All I can say is have faith, people. It'll work itself out, and don't worry about the things you can't control. Worry about what you can control. You can control your family, yourself, your household. Those are the things you should be focused on. Worry about understanding who best fits into your life and who doesn't. Because if you can get the right people in your life and keep them there, then there's not going to leave a whole lot of room for the bad people to come in and interrupt things and take away from your train of thought, or distract you from the goals that you're trying to set for yourself. That would be my best piece of advice on everything that's going on with the nation. Stop worrying about all the other BS. And I even, to let my friends out there know, I wasn't, even during the Obama administration, yeah, I didn't like the guy himself, but there was no point I was ever encouraging an overthrow of government. You don't do that. Obama wasn't Hitler. Trump isn't Hitler. So now to more enlightening things. Let's get that off the table and out of the way. So campfires, tea, and philosophy, right? Let's go over the three here. First of all, tea. I'm a tea connoisseur, so I'm going to explain something to you. In America, we have bleached tea bags. All right, they bleach the tea bags before you even drink it. That's why a lot of people don't drink tea. They have an awful taste to it. Get yourself a French press. About 20 minutes reading about Canadian tea or German tea or some other country besides America. And then a teapot. Spend about $50. Go online. Order some tea. Order some whole leaf tea. That's what you want to do. And then you're going to get some raw organic honey. Okay, Okanagan honey from British Columbia is some of the best in the world, hands down. And now why I say this is because there's a huge difference. Those of you who've had tea over here, yes, I see that. I'm drinking Earl Grey. Exactly. Cheers. Those of you who had tea in other places compared to here in America, you notice a slight taste. Things are off. The whole leaf teas that's originally how tea was, brought about years ago. When I was in Special Forces, I did a stint in North Carolina, and we learned about pine needle tea. Okay, see, pine needles have a lot of vitamin C. You take them, you take a whole handful. This is if you're surviving in the middle of nowhere, and it doesn't really do a good job to curb hunger I think we were being told that, you know, to try not think about food, but when you take a whole bunch of tea or pine needles and you put them in boiling water, it does have a citrus taste to it. And when you start drinking that citrus, you do tend to get some more energy back when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, you're freezing or whatever. Disclaimer to that, yes, you can drink a little bit of bleach, just 2 droplets of water, 2 eye droplets per quart. That'll purify most of your toxic water out there. Now we're going back to tea. We talked about you know, the leaves and all that other stuff. So why am I getting into all this? Because it's very important, the small steps we take, what we put in our body, that becomes prevalent through the way we think, irrational thinking, our weight, our skin tone, texture. You know, it all comes back to normal. So tea, I have a ritual every night. I come out here, even if it's a small fire, and I have my little tree, which I've been told this tree needs to go on the cover of a book, and I'm thinking the next Foreververse book, which is due out in about 4 years. Back to the tea. With that, you know, you want to put what's good in your body. So whole leaf tea is where you start. You know, I have a nightly ritual, campfire, and whole leaf tea. And I changed it up. There's this one called Coco Canela. It's Mexican hot chocolate. Some of you have been over here at my house and actually tried Coco Canela, and you loved it. It's cinnamon, chocolate taste, and it's tea. Man, it's tea. I don't know if they really made it from Mexico, but it's really good. And that's some really good stuff too. So once you start trying these little things, even though they cost just a couple dollars, you'll start gaining a new ritual in your life, and your life will in turn become richer. And how am I able to say that? Well, you know, every one of us in life has been through some sort of something very horrendous at some point. And so that's where I bring up the campfire. We went to tea, now we'll go to campfire. I could come back to tea, that's a disclaimer, at any moment in this conversation. But what I'm going to do is just kind of circle back to everything. Everybody has gone through some type of traumatic situation. You're not just born into a normal world. You're not born into normal situations. You're born into what you perceive as normal and what you get used to. Now, along the road of life, whatever you've done is a culmination of points that equals the sum of an event that has eventually traumatized you. Now, in that, there are many ways to deal with it, whatever that event may be. And sometimes you have reoccurring events or multiple events, and we can get into that whole subject later on. But the point is that regardless of trauma, regardless of what's happened, it's still important to maintain healthy things in your life. Earl Grey, for example. Tea. Yes, the invite's open. Somebody asked they want to be here. The campfire is now open, and so is the lit up star tree, and my dog who is chasing something over there. Good old ambush. The note on my dog, people love him more than me, and that's okay, because I love that dog too. That's one great pup, right? Back to the trauma. So when we start to put good things in our body, say tea, that's what I do every night, you know, you start to preoccupy yourself with a series of small good things throughout the day. And as you do that, as you're preoccupying yourself with all these little things you do throughout the day that you really enjoy, you begin to enjoy your life. And then the bad things that happen to you don't overshadow your life so much. They don't conquer you. They don't defeat you. And what I like to call is the intrusive thoughts. We are responsible for how we act on our thoughts. That's what defines our character. We are not responsible for what thoughts come into our head at any given moment of the day. You could be sitting there, and all of a sudden you have this god-awful horrendous thought or something that throws you into an anxiety state or something like that. What you do next is up to you. So there's this thing called cord cutting. It's a psychological technique where you sit there and you envision the trauma or whatever's bugging you, and you get into a quiet place, and then you envision yourself attached to that event by a cord, and then you visually see yourself cutting that cord that tethers you to that event. And after doing that, you have a visualization in your mind. It actually works. It goes away. I've did it. Every event that happens in my mind that reoccurs. Every time I do this, it seems to have less and less effect when that overwhelming event occurs in my mind. So that's a healthy habit too. You practice good psychology with your mind throughout the day. That's a healthy habit. So we have tea, and we have healthy ways to view the world and think of things. Those are good things. Now we move on to people. I constantly preach on having the right people in your life and making no reserve about getting the wrong people out of it. You shouldn't. Here's why. After I take a nice drink of this beautiful tea. When you're born to the time you die, your time is finite. You only have so much of it. You will eventually run out of it. So time, therefore, being our most precious commodity ever. That's the only thing we can never get back. We can spend it all we want. We cannot always get it back. And then, you want to say hi to everybody? Huh, shithead? Thanks, buddy. Okay, go chase a snake or a gopher or eat a fish. All right. No, I don't want you to sit right there. Come on, push. Come on. Go, sit. No, I'm not playing with you right now. All right, I love you too. Speaking of intrusive thoughts, I forget where I was, but so you, yeah, I'm trying to get back on the train of thought. My dog has a tendency to come up and interrupt what I was doing. Anyway, people and time, right? So with that, you can spend all the time you want, you're never going to give it back. So when it comes down to the people in your life that they're being toxic and they're doing things that are causing you constant havoc, there's a fine balance between family and love and friendship and who is actually worth keeping. There's tough love, but there's a point where you have to draw a line. And that's what I started to do over the past, 2 years or so. And I tell you what, that's made a dramatic difference. I surround myself with good people. And even though sometimes those good people may screw up or whatever, I realize that they're human, but those are the ones worth investing in. And that's something that it takes time to figure out who's worth keeping and worth not. So that's my other advice to you, is because, believe it or not, what you hear and how you see people react, since we're creatures of nature, we adapt to that. We adapt to that very strongly. And here's an interesting thing. In I think the early 2000s, a study was conducted over at Harvard. Hi, Anna. And what they did is they had two groups of people. Okay, this psychologist had two groups of people. He put them in to two different rooms. Group A had a series of sentences that were all like good words. They were all something happy, joyous. They encouraged encouragement, whatever. Group B had something that was negative or sad or whatever. So they left them in each group in there for 5 minutes in their respective rooms. Now, when they were done, their instructions were to get up from the room, go down and see the proctor at the end of the hall. And the proctor would do is he would he'd go over the results of what everybody was reading, and he would notice body language and demeanor and things like that. And they took away something very important, just for 5 minutes of this, mind you. They found that the people who were in Group A, the good group, the group that read, "What's up, Duckworth? I just got called Big Sarge and never leaves." That's right. Back to the story. So what happened in Group A, the people who were upbeat, they left the room and they kind of walked with a little pep in their step. They handed their papers in, said a good afternoon, and then they left for the day. Okay, they were good to go. And then I'm going to put some fire on there in a minute, or some wood. Group B, they got up real slow, and they walked out real slow from the room. When they were leaving, they were also very sad and depressed. Their demeanor was just not good. It could tell there was a sudden shift from Group A to Group B. So this whole transition that they could see in the two groups was due from what the psychologist guessed happened, that just something as small as a few words has a dramatic impact on how our mood is and how we operate. So this goes back to my claim and the thing I'm talking about with the people in your life, is that when you have the right people, you're going to hear a lot of good support and encouragement. My dog is trying to knock over the table of fire over there, or the table with some tea. Anyway, so when they had people that have positive roles in your life, you're bound to succeed and you're bound to do well. Not only that, but when people are more successful, more positive in life, they're bound to have better information on how to handle certain situations. You know, instead of saying, oh, go whoop his butt or something like that, maybe try a different approach. Me being a grunt for god awful many years, usually it's forced by fire, you know, take over the hill. But I've learned to be more diplomatic, and it works a lot better in the day here. So let's see, we're gonna get this going. Now, the third thing I'm going over is the fire. There's a couple things about fire. We know that heat is often a factor in healing itself. You know, without life, without the sun, we don't have life. Without the sun, we don't have heat. Therefore, heat is a good metaphor for healing. I'm trying to get this, there we go. So we often have the songs. I'm doing great, by the way. Thank you, Kara. We have songs around the campfire. We have people who sit around the campfire and they're able to open up. And why is this? You know, where does this all come from? Why is it at the campfire? In the military, by the way, for all my civilian friends, there is I'll explain this so you get this understanding. There in the military, there's a school, Army Ranger School, and it's a very difficult school to go through. And by that, it's 60 some days of training. You don't get a lot of sleep. You don't eat. You're constantly put through a barrage of physical assessments, but they call a fire Ranger TV. And there's something that happens within the fire that it's majestic almost. It's trance-like. When a person can sit around a fire, but all you can agree is that, you indeed can very much get into the zone. It's relaxing, it's meditative, it's hypnotic. And so there's the healing by the fire. Now, on the technical side, what I learned from Alaska, I learned a lot. I got my ass kicked in Alaska, by the way. I learned that I didn't know shit about life and that you have to be prepared all the time or you're going to suck. And that negative 58 is actually a temperature and not just a number. It really is, and it's really cold. It's birch wood. White birch. It's the best wood you can ever have to burn. The BTU rate is phenomenal. That's why birch is really prized. Cottonwood's kind of like crappy, and then pine's some of the worst you can use. So if you're ever out hunting, get to know your trees. Oak's a good tree to use. It takes a little while to get ignited. And with that, with fire is all about preparation. Did you know, as of today, I looked this up. As of today, goddamn, the fire's getting hot. 80% of people who attempt to start a fire quit because they can't get it started. How is that, America? I don't know where the hell I'm at. I'm on another planet. I'm the alien behind the wall right now, okay? That's what's going on here. We have 80% of Americans don't know how to start a fire. I was offered a job over at Palo Alto to work at a camp that teach a bunch of techie kids how to do things like work a chainsaw, start a fire, stuff like that. And it was amazing to hear. I mean, these kids are going to be responsible for generations to come of technology, but they can't do the basic things like start a fire. And that's why I think this is so important. When I see my daughter, at least once a month, we'll go out. I'll teach her how to, build a shelter and teach her how to start a fire. Little things like that, just in case she ever needs to have those skills. Fire also, it's one of those things where it raises your morale when you're alone and you're scared. So if you're ever in the woods and you're alone and scared, you're lost, build a fire. It's very peaceful. It kind of brings your center back to things. So I'm gonna do a knowledge bomb right here. This is the writer and the philosopher coming out in me. That shit's getting hot again. So I'm gonna scoot over just a little bit. Oh, my tree's lighting up a little bit more. Yeah? Yeah? Oh, I got a bulb going out. Great. All right. So, Elizabeth Gilbert, I think that's her name. Pray, Eat, Love, Work, Pray, Love, or something like that. It's an international bestseller. She has a TEDx talk that she did, and it was and you know, the copy editor, Sherilyn Grayson, she introduced me to this to watch because it was very interesting. They said, you know, there's this trend that we see in our current time of musicians, writers, artists, people who get fame, and then they end up having hi dog, can you go lay down? I love you too. Yeah, my sister's got a new dog named Biscuit. You gonna eat him? Yeah, he sure is. So fun with flags from Big Bang Theory. I like it. We could do this. So anyway, she was talking about. Come on, hold on. I gotta get my number one spectator out of the way. Bush, go lay down. Oh, come on. Thank you. She said, you know, there's a lot of people that basically authors commit suicide. You know, writers, musicians, they hit this peak, and then it's not that they're lacking the attention that's the problem. The problem is the attention. And what this is you know, when you write a bestseller, you write a really good, compelling work, there's this expectation to do it again. And being the writer or the artist, you'll sit there and go, well, shit, how am I ever going to do that again? And that makes a person naturally depressed. So when she did this study, Elizabeth Gilliver did this study and found out, she went all the way back to like the earliest recorded documents we have about tribes and people and things like that. And it's very interesting what she found out is that, let's just call it the olden day and the new day. Now, the olden day is everything pre-late 19th century, okay? Because that's about where we see the shift and everything. In the olden days, when, and we're about to use the fire as a metaphor here too, when the dancers were around the fire, they would start dancing and getting into the groove. They became so hypnotic, the people in the crowd began chanting Allah, which meant godlike. So that dancer had like some kind of godlike power. You fast forward so often, and then you get the matador who survives death, and every time he does from the bowl, he shouts Olay. So Allah got transitioned into the word Olay. And now what happens, we fast forward many centuries down the road, and we get to the Greeks and the Romans, and they start writing about the muse. And they too were having their problems, but they always relied on the muse to do something else, to do something for them, to help them with their work or whatever. And now we get into modern time, and what's happening is people start getting depressed, substance abuse, suicides, all these things. And they're wondering what happened. It's because, she said, there's two definitive things that happened here. There became self-reliance, where we started giving all credit to ourselves as writers and authors and musicians and all those things. Whatever we created out of our own sheer genius, you know. And so when we failed, we were totally 100% responsible for that failure. Now, she said in the olden days, what happened was people had a shared responsibility with their deity or their muse or whatever you wanted to call it. And what would go on is that if your work was great, you celebrated that your work was great, but you couldn't always take the credit. You always had to say, okay, my muse helped me, or my deity helped me out. So you had a dual party back then. So, but if your work failed, now she puts it very beautifully, is that it's not just that it wasn't always your fault, so you couldn't bear all the burden of your work being horrible. It's that you just had a muse or a deity that kind of sucked. He just wasn't doing his job. So in that essence, you couldn't burden all the blame or the responsibility for everything that was going on. And hi, Bush. And so that, she said, we need to transition back to that thinking. And that's kind of like what brings me to writing the 11th Muse, a lot of you have been hearing about, which I'm not going to go into too much detail. I mean, it's due next year. The finished version is due next year. Then the year after it'll be published. That's the goal. But I find myself, as I was posting a thing this morning about being in the doctor's office, and the nurse asked, she had seen me in the newspaper and asked me about writing what I was writing next, and I told her a romance novel. And it was kind of funny as it turned out. I told her it's like, these 3 different people talking to me all at once in my head. It doesn't end well every night because I have to shut them up one way. Usually, one way to shut up the voices, if you want to call that, is that you have to write them out. You have to write what they're saying. Your inner conscious or whatever is telling, your subconscious is telling you something that you need to know, and you need to write that. So that's my cure for Kai. So with that, it was funny to hear her reaction. She just kind of laughed and was like, yeah, so how's this book gonna end? And I was sitting there going over 10 different endings in my head that I have yet to write. And I was like, I don't know yet. So what I do know, though, is that it's gonna be around a campfire. However I finish it, I have my laptop set out here. I'm gonna plug away until I get it right. And that's very important for every artist to know too, is that you can't, you need to shut off the internet, turn off your phone when you work, limit the distractions. It's so easy to get distracted by social media these days with whatever we're doing. It limits us from our true potential of being an artist or, a professional in any career we have, or all that stuff. And I see a lot of thumbs up come right. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's true. Any work you do, you're going to need to, you need to cut out all the BS and think about like Rudyard Kipling, F. Scott Fitzgerald, all these guys, Ernest Hemingway, went out and built a cabin, on the woods. He's like, I'm going to build this cabin, and I'm going to write about it, and it's going to be great. And he didn't have crap. So these guys didn't have the internet to help them. It's great for research, but I tell you what, it's more of a distraction for an author or artist. One of the most interesting things I like to put out there is I'm working with a rap artist out of Chicago. He's pretty famous, and I'm not going to say his name. I'm really not allowed to give much information until the book comes out. The man's a genius. He kind of explained to me how rap works, and he's in the book. He's the best friend of the protagonist in the book. So whenever there's a book signing, the rap artist is on the radio doing a talk show, and they have kind of a funny dialogue that goes back and forth where they talk about women, and both of them know everything about women, and that's how this book's going to go. Joking! I'm joking! I'm going to get beat up for that one. So with this, though, the rap artist, he tells me that when you write a verse, he said rap is mostly about bragging. He's like, but every verse revolves around the verse prior and the verse ahead of it. So when you do this, when you make a line, in the music, it has to be very profound. And I said, well, tell me the difference in your eyes, from a musician's eyes, of what it is like, and compared to a writer. So you're trying to tell something in a song. I'm trying to tell something in a book. And he said, yeah, it's... I'm not a clown. Anyway, he said, it's like this. Musicians have 2 to 3 minutes to tell a book. He said, writers have 200 to 300 pages to tell a movie or a lifetime. So they go hand in hand, and that's beautiful, because one thing we both have to struggle with in both art forms is the fact that you have to sum up your words, and you have to make them very powerful. And I think powerful words are what leads to good reading. The best advice that was ever given was, when you're writing a book, you write one perfect sentence. You write one very powerful, really great sentence. You write that bad boy out. And then what you do is you write another one. But it's got to be better than the one before. And then you do that till you get a paragraph. You do so many paragraphs till you get a page, so many pages till you get a book. And he said that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they get into the habit of trying to say what they want to, but they forget that you're really trying to get your point across. And in today's world, it's so important to do that, because we don't have a lot of time to get people's attention. We have a few minutes, and if your book is good and it stands out, then it'll go on and it'll carry on throughout the ages. And that's kind of what my goal is. I don't ever want to be, famous or bestseller or any of that business. Those are nice titles, but it's not what you write for. I write because I want some parent 200-300 years down the road to say, you're going to be the next Anthony Farina. That's it. I'm not an Ernest Hemingway or a Faulkner or none of those guys. It's not about that. I'm not trying to be somebody else. If my writing is going to suck till the day I die, then oh well, it's great. I had fun doing it. I've got so many books I've got to write, it's insane. And yes, everybody I know in life, at some point you're going to be in a book. I've already got this mapped out, like about 1,200 people on Facebook. I got everybody playing some role minor. It's incredible. It's just things like my writer's encyclopedia. At what point can I use a character for what? And I just go and I look in the index and I'm like, this person's going here. And that's why you always see a lot of people in my books pop up as real people. Some of you may know. People are inspiration, and therefore if my writing is going to be good, the people need to be good in my life, and that circles back all the way to the beginning of my conversation about keeping the right people and the good people. So our fire, yeah, we got onto that subject from the Allah to Olay to the Muse, and that's where I've been doing lately. I've been kind of crediting, you guys know I pray to the Holy Mother a lot, and that's my thing. It's no disrespect to anybody else. I have many friends that are atheists and all that. I don't discriminate against religion. What I do know is that my faith personally has helped me get to where I'm at. So if it doesn't work for you, then I'm not one to judge. How dare I judge? So that's not even right. I've screwed up enough in my life that I know I need to keep going in my direction. So with that though, I keep going to this muse of mine. I kind of created her, and she's sassy and witty, and she's always got something better to say. And it's not because she's a woman, so I don't want people to think that, no, well, maybe it is, but women are intelligent creatures. They're like the purgatory, things you want but you can't have all the way ever. They always hold something back from you. Yeah, I'm onto it. So I do that. I created a muse, and it's interesting because a lot of times throughout the day when I know I'm slacking throughout my work, or if I haven't written for a full day or two, something really starts bugging me, and it kind of paralyzes my whole life and says you can't do anything else until you sit your butt down and write out this next page or scene or whatever it is. And in doing that actually kind of keeps me in check. So you know what? It's working for me. It's not saying I'm worshiping a Greek goddess, but it's saying that the relationship I have with whatever's in the universe right now and the Holy Mother, that it's working for me great. So find your thing that makes your inner beauty come out. And I don't want to keep bugging you guys here. The tea's gone cold and I need to throw some wood on the fire. Just give me one hot second. So that's what we have today. What I plan to do is this. What I'm doing here isn't anything for fame or love or riches or nothing at all. I just thought, I'm seeing a sharp decline in society. So what if my little part can be, I try and get people to just sit down for 20, 30 minutes once a week, and we just talk some good stuff, like that. I'll have more for you next week. So every week I'm going to, have my little campfire set up. Hopefully I can figure out a way to get better lighting out here. I appreciate everybody joining today. In 2 weeks, I will be going over some recommended reading, which I think has helped me a lot, and some military authors that I think are very promising, and they're on their way up to sending a very good message. One tip I will give to you if you're aspiring as an artist, musician, or a writer, James Patterson said it best. He's the author of 90 best-selling books, right? He said, if you read a book and you really like it, or if you like that author, say you like Dean Koontz or Nicholas Sparks, right? You kind of want to see how they did things. Same goes with artists and musicians. Go to the back of the book that you read and look at what the recommended reading list is, because they got their ideas from somewhere. So you know what, a while back I was kind of suffering at piano. I was trying to learn Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy and a few other difficult pieces, and I learned that go buddy, go sit down, go good boy. I took that same advice and I looked up some history on Claude Debussy, and I found out that George MacDonald was like one of his inspirations, plus Russian artists. So I looked back to Russian artists, and I found out, like, wow, where did they get their info from? You know, what made them so great? And so by finding these, I don't know, like a little trail of knowledge, if you will, I found a little trail of knowledge. And the same thing works from George Patterson. Look in the back of the book, you'll find good recommended reading. That was like one of the most overlooked and simply one of the best key pieces of advice I found to sustaining your own internal growth. So like I said, it's all about being an individual and becoming a better you. So to wrap this up, we've covered tea, campfire. We covered what kind of wood to use. You know, everything from drinking pine needles, for all you that are just tuning in, to just a good amount of philosophy tonight. I've really enjoyed your company. This has been great. You know, I know it's a Monday night and everybody's busy, so I'm going to get going here. But remember, keep yourself surrounded with good people in your life. And if people have a track record of constantly causing the bad and the harmful to you, get rid of them or distance them, or better yet, set a boundary. You know, set a boundary between you and the negative, because when it starts to overlap, it eats you up. Okay, do that, and your life will improve drastically. And that's my gift to you, my friends. That's what this whole thing is about. Is until the day I die, I hope to do things like this to reach out to you, my friends, and just let you know what I learned. This isn't gospel, it isn't logic, it isn't anything. It's just what I've learned, and if you can make some sense of it, great. If you can't, take whatever you can use, and then I die, and that's the end of the story. But at least I can make an impact somewhere, and it starts right here around the campfire. It starts right here with some good tea. Go look up David's Tea out of Canada. That's their Canadian tea company. They're like the only tea company I know. That's why I'm raving about them. And you can get so many good teas up there. And yes, boundaries are the key. So yeah, until next time, guys. What I'll do is, you know, the next Sunday and Monday, if you want to see something again, I'm going to give a topic. And if you'd like to have some questions answered or something, let me know, because if I don't know something, I'll research it for you for free, and I'll talk about it and let you know what I learned. That's my gift back to you as well. So, all right, well, here's from the campfire and the tree that's still lit up. Went through most of my wood. Ambush, we're gonna say goodbye. We're gonna say bye to everybody. You son of a bitch. All right, we're gonna stop. Get off me. All right. Love you guys. I'm not sure how to finish this.